Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. The purpose of this video, which is the first of the series of 3 videos, is to present the symptoms management application, which is the project I have created for the capstone project, the last project held during the last course in the mobile and cloud computing program provided by Coursera. So in the first video, I'm going to present you very shortly the concept of the application, and I will present the concept of the application based on the design document I have prepared for us, the midterm documentation. Then the second video will present the backend application, which is very well done and very complicated, and the third video will present the front-end application, which is also very nicely done. So the concept itself assumed that what I will create will be the modern mobile application written according to new Google design guidelines, the material design guidelines. Moreover, it assumed that it will be full of nice visual features, and it will be also graphically appealing. Obviously, the reality verified my initial plans. So let me describe you my initial proposal in details. I will try to be brief because obviously I understand that not everybody has the time to spend hours listening to what I have to say. So let me continue with the concepts themselves. First, I want to focus the application on the around the idea of checkings of answers that the patient needs to provide to questions stated by the doctor. So my first idea was to provide very nice notification shown on the lock screen of Android, showing how many notifications have been, how many check-ins have been provided for the day, and how many of them are still missing. It is optional idea, and it has not been realized in the final application. Well, I've provided much simpler notifications corresponding to what is shown on the current screen. The notifications are in fact alarms configured by the user oneself. So the user can take a prescription, which is like a central concept in the application, the entity containing medicines to be applied, and the hour when those medicines must be applied. And after clicking at the prescription, the user can set up notification, and notifications in the final front-end application are very similar to notifications shown on the currently presented screen. Let me magnify it a little bit so that it's visible better. Now, the patient's check-in history, which is in fact the first screen of the patient section of the application. Please note that both conceptually and in the final implementation, I have divided the application into two sections. One section dedicated for the patient and the second section for the doctor. So the patient section at minimum must support a list of check-ins and list of prescriptions that I've mentioned before, that is required in order to fulfill the exercise, the project requirements. Obviously, the user section must also include the ability of checking in at a certain hour, and also it must include the possibility of answering to the set of questions. So what I'm showing at the screen now is the list of check-ins, and the final implementation of this list of check-ins is very close to my initial concept, but slightly different. Slightly different because I haven't included graphical symbols for answers provided by users, and it is because I decided finally to create a generic application allowing to not only present the patient with questions stated in the project description, but arbitrary questions. So additionally, I haven't included the search function for the patient, but the general shape of the check-ins list, patient check-in list, is similar to the initial concept, and it includes material design, new Android Lollipop toolbar. It includes the list of check-ins. It includes the floating action button. However, I have included it in the lower right corner of the application instead of the upper part, and of course the drawer icon allowing to slide the menu from the left to right. So the next section includes details of checking. My initial idea included dividing it into sections. It proposed the possibility of editing check-ins, proposed more elaborate toolbar, proposed graphical icons, simplified it a lot. In the final version, I include only the list of questions and answers without sections and graphical elements. And obviously the previous sections were corresponding to the patient's view of the application. Similarly, as the currently shown menu, the drawable menu or drawer menu, I have included it in quite similar form in the final application. However, with two sections out of 5, those required check-ins and prescriptions, pain history, eating ability, and logging out options have been not included. Then the check-in itself, I have initially proposed to be composed of 3 screens. I have divided the check-in into medicine-related questions, and as shown in this screen, I've made them very elaborate in my initial proposal with graphical icons, with cards, all the new Android elements. um, the second question with graphical icons with buttons allowing to provide answers. The third question with graphical icons with buttons allowing to provide answers. Well, I have simplified the idea of checking a lot in the final version of the application. What I've done is that I have created only a single screen with a list of questions and possible answer options, and the simplifications seems to be justified both from the patient's point of view and from the developer's point of view, because it's simpler, and that will be presented in the third part of this video. The list of prescriptions, well, actually I've proposed them very simple, and what I have implemented in the final version of the front end is much more elaborate, as prescriptions are the central point in the data model of the entire enterprise application or entire cloud application implemented for the purpose of this project. They contain a lot of information and represent quite much of the information, and in a little different way than shown on this screen. The notification setup is also much more elaborate than shown on this screen. The patient is presented with the standard Android Lollipop time picker, which is similar to the clock with a shape and not as simple as presented here. So the above screens were my initial ideas for the patient screens, for the patient section. Now the login screen that I'm presenting now is actually very similar in the final version of the application, only apart from the additional server address section that I have included in the final version of the application, and all the further screens below this one that I will present now, for which I will present concepts now, corresponds to the doctor's section of the application. So doctor's notifications that I have initially proposed are much more simple in the final version of the application. What I have created in the backend is the function producing these notifications massively, producing them in a large amount. That's why I decided not to include them in, not to send them as notifications and present them in the Android status bar. I decided to include them in the application itself, in the section of the application included in the doctor's view. Now the list of patients I have created is much simpler than the one presented on the current screen, and this is the view of patients list presented to the doctor. First of all, I decided not to include pictures of patients because it's quite difficult functionality, and the advanced functionality required by the application I have delivered in a different form, the form of animated transitions between application views, application screens. Moreover, I haven't included the ability of adding patient. I haven't included patient editing function, which wasn't required by the application, though initially conceptually it seemed obvious, and I thought that I might have a time to deliver it. However, time constraints didn't allow me for that. Obviously, I have included the patient search functionality, which allows the doctor to search for the list of patients and then to browse through the patient's check-ins based on the found patient's name or patient entry. And the search functionality implemented in the final version of the application is much simpler than the one presented on this concept here, because I'm allowing to search using the patient's name only. Now, the patient search results are also simpler in the final version of the application. It is because I'm allowing to search for the patients themselves only, and I'm not including check-in entries close to the patient search results. Now, after selecting a patient found or presented in the list of patients for the doctor has patient details activity presented, which is tabbed activity with multiple tabs, multiple subsections, where where the data corresponding to the patient itself is presented. So continuing the description of patients' details. The first patient section is patient's details with important patient related information like name and surname and email. In the final implementation, I haven't included icons allowing to the patient's picture, the picture itself, and I haven't included the function of editing patient, but the section displaying patient details is very similar to the initial concept, and it's also the first tab of the tabbed patient details view. The second tab presenting patients details includes prescriptions, and these prescriptions are presented slightly differently in the final version of the application, not as cards, as shown here, much more briefly, as a list, including only the essential information for the doctor. Then medicines. My initial idea is to provide the ability of defining medicines to the doctor. Actually, I haven't included it in the final implementation. There are few medicines typed into the database and related with questions and prescriptions of patients. So the screens here state only conceptual. Now, the list of check-ins for the patient, it corresponds to the list of check-ins presented to the patient oneself. The doctor's version, similar to patient's version, the final implementation doesn't include the graphical symbols representing provided answers. Now, what I haven't included in the final application is the graphical representation of the patient's answers. I'm providing colored indications or colored answers to the provided questions. However, I'm not laying out the answers graphically anyway. I'm not charting them, though a piece of graphics is presented in the form of colors. So my data model, I could talk a lot about the data model, and well, I suppose that the interested listener will take the DDL file included in the backend source code of my application. The DDL file presents details of the final database layout. What I'm presenting here the conceptual layout, and it's not 100% identical to the final one, however mostly it is. The final database layout and the data model is just a slight extension to what I'm showing diagrammatically here. Please note, the central point of my data model is table prescription. Prescription is like a central entity around which are organized the rest of the data or the rest of the application model. So medicine is related with prescriptions because they are prescribed. They are prescribed by doctors. They are prescribed for patients. Well, actually, this relation is relation patient and doctor, because many patients can have many doctors. Each prescription is related with questions are related with answers, and at the checking, users are choosing answers to particular questions. So prescriptions are also related with a specific dedicated join table, joining notifications, prescriptions, and pairs of questions, answers. Notifications in my application are entities indicating the results of the analysis of the patient's check-ins repetitively performed in the backend part of the application. So the backend part, the server part of the application, repetitively every 10 minutes, I believe, it's currently set up like that, with all the check-ins and analyzes them in order to trigger notifications saying that a number of recent patient check-ins revealed that they should be hospitalized. For instance, that the pain level for last 12 hours was severe. So that's it about the data model. The interested reviewer, I would like to direct to the DDL file containing all the SQL statements, creating tables and fields in the database. Well, I decided I usually create DDL files manually. It is because such DDL files might be further used in production by people maintaining applications, and well, they allow to pre-initialize the database to appropriate state without the necessity of using the ORM object relational mapping as Hibernate or Spring Data API. In fact, in case of so interrelated database model, it is sometimes useful to execute direct SQL queries. So in the very end of my initial concept, I have included my proposal for the backend and frontend application structures. I have included the conceptual component breakdown of the backend application. And actually the component breakdown for the backend application stayed very similar in the final application. It is really similar in the final solution. It's larger, there are minimal controllers, there are minimal services synthesized. However, the concept, the core as presented in this diagram stayed the same. And finally, the front-end application component breakdown. I have distinguished a lot of components that were required after, or they seemed required after the analysis of the application concept. However, the practice, the implementation revealed a lot more of them. I think that the number of components in the final front-end application is twice as large as shown in this diagram. So this completes the presentation of the application concept, the presentation of my midterm document. Please note that I will submit additional document mapping the requirements into the application classes and application packages, so that it will make it easier to the reviewer to analyze the code or analyze the application while performing the review. The further two videos that I'm asking the reviewer to watch are the presentation of the backend application and then the presentation